Hello, so this is Doug from Ferryfield Group, and what I'm going to be showing in this particular video is how to take a standalone risk register and bring it into Safran Risk. Now, this is the starting point here. This is a risk register that I've got in Excel. So this could have been created in Excel, or of course it could have been brought in from another risk management database where we've done an export. So what we've got is we've got a number of different risks. We've got a distribution which we've chosen here, a probability, and then we've also got a 3-point estimate for the parameters. So what I need to do is to get this now into Safran Risk. So the way to do that is to first of all go into the Safran project risk screen. So at the moment you can see that I've got an empty screen. I haven't got any risks already in here. Of course, if I wanted to, I could simply click new project risk and add the data in manually. But as I've already got it elsewhere, it seems a shame to have to redo that effort. So the way we do this is that there is the ability to import and export files via Excel. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to export my project risks, and if I export that to Excel, then what happens, I get a blank template come up, which I can then use as an import template or an import mechanism for my risks. And so I've got one here that I prepared earlier. What I've done, I've just obviously you can see it, there's a number of different hidden tabs or hidden columns rather on here. I've just hidden those away for now just because I wanted to focus on the main things that I'm going to be bringing in. So this is what the blank import template looks like, and we can only bring that into, it has to be in this format in order to bring it into Safran. And so what I've got a number of different fields. I've got an ID, the description, the type, which I'll come on to in a moment, probability, the cost impact type, which I'll also describe in a moment, and then also the distribution as well. So the challenge then is really to how to make sure that our data, which we've got in this format, matches the Safran format. And so I've got a little example here of a completed import template with all the different fields filled out already with data in. And you can see that the challenge is to get our data from Excel looking like a formula or syntax into the language that Safran Risk understands. And so how Safran does things is that we have the name of the distribution. You'll see there's no equal sign here. The reason there's no equal sign is because it's not adding in functions to Excel. It's just a kind of a standalone template to hoover up information into the Safran Risk database. So we have the distribution. We then have an open bracket or open parentheses, a value, a space, a semicolon, another space, our next parameter, and so on all the way through. So what we've got then, we've got a challenge to get our data looking like this format here. Now, of course, there's a way that we can do this in Excel through the manipulation of data. So I'm gonna show you how that works now. So if I open up this converter file, which will be available if anybody wants to get a copy of this themselves afterwards, very happy to share this with whoever wants it. But the idea here is that what we're doing is we're using one of the Excel functions called concatenate, which is where we can bring together a number of different cells or values and combine them into one. And so I'm going to show you how it works. So this is the example file here where I've already got some information in. You can see that basically what we've got a number of different fields that then get combined. And actually, if I go into this converter tab here, I'm just going to open up this extra little bit up at the top, which is that I've actually hidden away some additional little bits and pieces over here, just to kind of make it a little bit clearer on the screen. But ultimately, what we've got within the model is the ability to already built into the model are these various separators which we have going on here. So we've got the brackets, we've got the semicolons, etc. They're all hidden away in here, but you don't need to, or I don't need to mess around with those because they've already been set up. So if I go into my converter, what I'm going to do then, I am going to go and have a look at my project risks. And so first of all, I'm going to take the distribution type, which in this case is the beta per distribution, which is the name of the distribution in Safran, and I'm going to paste that into my converter model here. So I'm just going to paste the values in, and you can see actually that what I've done here is values have those kind of pre-built in place already. And you'll see that as soon as we've done that, as soon as the beta perk gets added, then the concatenate function is then bringing that in with two of the brackets. So now I'm going to get my actual parameters themselves. I'm going to highlight all those, copy those, and just paste those in as values as well. Okay, so now what you can see, hopefully, is that I've now got my the kind of the full function, which is how we need it in Safran, but it's got this additional equals sign at the start, which I need to get rid of. So again, I'm just going to copy all these across by right-click, highlighting, right-click, and saying copy. And then over here, I'm going to put my cursor in this first cell, right-click again, and go to this paste special. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring these in as values. So it's not going to muck around with any of the cell formatting or anything like that. There we go. Click on OK. And now what I've got my, so the difference here is that I've got, this is my concatenate function, which is driving what we see in the cell. But then here, all I've got are the actual values from the result of that concatenation. And so the final thing that I need to do is just to take these cells here, again highlight them, and go up to this find and select option on the toolbar. So if I click that, I've got this option here to replace. And so what I want to replace, you can see I've already put one in here, is the equal sign, and I want to replace that with nothing, because I don't actually want to do anything with it at all. I just want to get rid of it from my functions. And so if I put that in and then click replace all, then you'll see that we've now got these 10 replacements which have been made, where we've replaced the equal sign with nothing, and now I have these formula in that function which Safran will understand. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take that data there, copy it, and now I'm going to bring it back into my Safran Risk import template. I'm going to then paste it into the cells as values again. And now, of course, I need to join it up a little bit, and I'm also then going to bring in my other information as well. So I'm going to bring in my ID and my description as the first part. And then I'm also going to bring in the probability as well. Of course, I could have customized it to make sure that all the columns exactly aligned, etc. But I thought I can't do it in more of a real life type demo. And I'm now going to bring in my percentages as well. Okay, so there's actually two fields here that I haven't filled out so far. And that's what type of risk it is. So all of these are standard risks. I'm not going to talk about the other types of risks. That'll be a separate session, but I just want them all to be the same standard risks. So I'll just kind of apply that to each of my risks down here. And in terms of the cost impact type, I'm also going to say that all of these are what we call absolute impacts. Again, the kind of the difference between them is that the absolute impacts are where we have a fixed amount, whereas the relative impacts are ones where we're flexing our original assumptions by a certain amount. Because I don't have any original assumptions, I'm just going to bring them all in as absolutes. Okay, so now I have my Safran Risk import template, and so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do a little save as. I'm going to put it in the same place up here, and I am just going to call that filled risks. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, I'm now going to go back into Safran and I'm going to import those. So if I click import and go import from Excel, and then I'm going to go and find those on my desktop, which is on the converter, and what do I call them? Field risks. There we go. Oops. Okay. So that's first of all close that down because Safran won't be able to open it up because I'm using it elsewhere. I'll now click import. Field risks. Okay, so now what I've got, I've brought in my information with the kind of, it's not quite the minimum. We could bring in less than this if we wanted to, but I've just brought it in with the ID, the description, risk type, and probability. I haven't given it a color or anything like that. But now what I now have those risks have now been all brought into my Safran risk database, into my model. So I now have my risks into Safran. And so now what I need to be able to do is then to be able to map these across, or to be able to see what happens when I run a simulation of all of these risks with each of their different impacts, etc. And so there's two methods that I've got for doing this. So method number one is to simply go into the cost model and set up some, I've called them risk pots, where we can map all these different risks to. And so in my cost breakdown structure, which I've set up via this grouping, I've set up this kind of Ferryfield group program of works, and I've got program number one and program number two, or project one and project two. And so what I can do here, I can then choose exactly when whereabouts I want those risks to be applied to. And so this is a kind of this could be a standalone cost breakdown structure model. And so what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to go here, I'm going to select some risks to add to project number one. So let's take the top 5 for that and add those and click OK. And then what we'll do for the second one, we're going to add the bottom 5 risks and click OK. Note, I'm not calling them bottom or top risks in terms of their significance, just in terms of the order in which they have been created. So now what I've got my risks that have been labelled against a particular element of my project. And so if I was to now go ahead and run a simulation, I'm just going to run a full analysis of 10,000 iterations. Now what I have got the results from my risk register. So I've got the whole of the project, so all of the risks, or I can break it down by sub-project, or whichever kind of level of granularity I want to go down to. So at the moment I've just broken it down by project, but of course I could do it by phase instead. So this is very much on a standalone basis, but if I chose to, I could also then map these risks against items in a schedule. So this is where it starts to get quite kind of interesting, I think. So if we have a look here, I've gone so far as to just build up a very simple little schedule within here, where I've got 2 different projects with some dummy activities underneath, and you'll see actually that when I've already run a simulation, and so I've got some uncertainties that I've applied to some of the elements in this schedule, which is why on this bar we can also see the confidence intervals as well as the deterministic values. But again, that's one for another session or another video. But we already have a schedule within here. And so this isn't a resource loaded schedule, it's just a schedule with no cost elements at all, which I've been using for a very high level QSRA. I wanted to get a risk adjusted schedule. And so what I can do, I could either go into my risk mapping tab, and I could then, so in my risk mapping tab, this is where I can see my schedule. So if I wanted to map any of the risks to my schedule, this is where I would do it. And so they could either be schedule risks, which are going to impact the amount of time it takes to complete my activities, or they could be cost risks like these ones here, which is where if a risk occurs, it's going to have some kind of an impact on the cost of my project, or how much I may need to pay out in contingency for contractors or whatever it is. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just pick the top 5 I'm going to do for the first project, and the bottom 5 I'm going to do for the second project, which of course is exactly the same kind of idea that I was doing in my cost breakdown structure. But now what I've done, we've now mapped the cost impact of those risks to the elements within our schedule, so what we're now able to see is we're now able to kind of to see exactly, or rather to link them to schedule. But actually, I'm just going to do one final thing, just to kind of keep it nice and easy and transparent. What I've done for each of my different projects, I've just set up what we call a hammock task. And so all I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply the risks to that hammock task. And when I do that, what you're then able to see in this cost impact tab here is the kind of the cumulative impact of all those risks. So they've each got a different probability, they've got different parameters, different values. And so what I wanted to do was just to be able to see the kind of the approximate distribution of those, which we can do in the real-time analyzer. But I've got my first 5 are for the first hammock, and then the second 5 are for the second hammock. So now what I've done, I've now linked my risks with activities within my schedule. And so if I now rerun the simulation, what I'm able to do is to then look at exactly whereabouts those different risks are being felt across the schedule itself. And so I can now see in my cost risk tab here, or the cost tab under my schedule, I can now see exactly whereabouts those or what my P50, my P80, my P90 risk pot looks like. So I can either do that by applying it to the schedule. And again, it doesn't have to be a resource loaded schedule. We could just have a very, very high level schedule, and I've just applied some risks to it. Or the other method for doing it, which is particularly useful if you want to do some more complex modelling, or indeed if you want to start bringing in your various time independent costs, and it could be your material, your labour's cost, your complete project cost model. I could also link to schedule within my cost tab here by linking to the CBS. And the way I would do that is that I would find my risk pot in this case, and you can see that I've already gone here. I'll just do it from scratch so you can see it. I'm going to link that to a hammock, and so for my project one, I've got that same hammock task, and this is where I can say exactly how much of that activity or phase or task I want to be responsible for driving my cost. And actually in this case I'm going to say 0%, because all I want to do here is just be able to link it to a particular cost, link the activity or phase to that risk exposure. Now of course if I wanted to, I could go down to a much higher level of granularity, where I might be linking risks to particular activities, but for now, for the sake of brevity and speed on this session, I'm just going to link it to this one hammock task. So I've now got a link between this pot of risks for the first project, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing for the second project as well, which is now what I've got set up there. Now, the reason I wanted to do that is because once we've done that, what we're then able to do, we're then able to go and to choose exactly when we want our risks to be impacted. And so here, for example, I've now got some different options. I could either fix the date, or I could take date from a schedule. I could maybe link to a particular start or finish date from a particular activity. But what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to say that I want my risk exposure for those 5 risks or 10 risks in total to be linked to the dates from the activities in my schedule connection. And so when I then tick that, you'll see that these dates here have changed from to the 12th of October to the 19th of February. And where that's come from is those are the dates for my first project here within my schedule. So I'm going to do that again for the second lot. I'm going to go and link them to the dates from the activities in the schedule connection. And now when I run a simulation, we're going to be able to generate some additional results kind of pretty quickly and easily, I think. So here, for example, this is my schedule results. So I've got my finish date of the project here. I've got my duration, but I've also got my cost up here. You can see we've got a 0% probability of hitting a deterministic value of 0. That's because we didn't have a deterministic cost model within here. And so all we've got is this risk pot over here. Likewise for the costs, we've then got exactly the same values are being shown within here as they are within here. So my P50 is 2.5 million, and 3.2 million is my P90. And I've got exactly the same in my cost model as well. And so I guess the final point I just wanted to show about this is that because we've got this high level schedule, and because we've now linked those risks to these different elements within our schedule, in my case project 1 and project 2, what we're now also able to then see is we're able to see our risks expressed over time in what we call this probabilistic cash flow. And so this probabilistic cash flow, what this is then showing me, let's change to months maybe on here. Okay, I've already on months. Let me set the start date as the actual start of my project, which was maybe around about the 10th of October 23. Whereabouts are we? Okay, just resizing it so it's all fits on the screen nicely together. There we go. Okay, so what we're now seeing on the screen here is along the x-axis, we're seeing the time horizon of my project. So this was the project started in October and finished in whenever it was, February, or well, later than that once we ran a simulation. The bars that we are seeing are each of those individual periods. So each month, what the bars are showing me, the orange bar is my P50, this is my P80, my P90, and then this is my P99. So what I'm now able to see from taking a risk register, hoovering it into Safran, linking it to the schedule, I can now see what my spend looks like, what my risk exposure looks like on a periodic basis at a given level of confidence, which is what we're seeing on this y-axis on the left-hand side. That's the kind of periodic amount, and then on the y-axis on the other side, this is the cumulative amount of risk exposure we are seeing by a given point. And so these lines that are here, this is how much I might expect to spend at my P99 on my risks by the end of the project. So the bars are the periods, and then the lines are the cumulative. So hopefully that was useful. If anybody would like to have a slower version of that, or indeed if anybody would like to receive a copy of the example files, that converter file, very happy to share that with you. Please just send me a message, a private message and I'll share it with you. Thank you very much. I hope that was useful for you, and hopefully we'll see you again for another of these in the future.